Chronicler's note. It would appear that the audio magitech spheres that are bootlegging the chronicle of my Lady Harmonia have become all the rage in the capital. Hopefully this doesn't spread any further. I am a little afraid of how my lady would react should she discover this development. I have also received word from Valorit. Sadly, the poor elven maid was mugged as soon as she landed in Alfram, and has contracted with a local guild to make up the funds to locate Our Lady. Metanote. These summaries are produced using the assistance of AI from Roll20 chat logs, and are meant to share and keep a record of an ongoing campaign.
The battle began in chaos. The Merry Misfits had rushed into the fray alongside a desperate band of defenders. Human knights led by a blonde-haired boy far too young for command. Already bloodied and faltering, their line was buckling beneath the press of Barbarous and monstrous Hugel. The air was thick with the clash of steel, the reek of sweat and blood, and the desperate cries of the wounded. Harmony called out with unshakable conviction, urging the soldiers to hold for just a moment longer as she invoked Harula's light. Her rapier darted forward, striking at the nearest foe with desperate precision. Brian hurled his sparks and sent Alice, the oak golem, crashing into the enemy line. But the spell's radius lashed into allies as well as enemies. Knights screamed as their bodies were seared, and the boy's anguished cry carried across the battlefield as his protectors fell.
"Watch the boy!"
Crimson Striker roared as she tore into a Hugel with fists and boots, her blows cracking bone and rending flesh until the beast fell in pieces. Barden thundered forward to challenge another, his sword flashing. Yet the tide of goblins swarmed unrelentingly, dragging down the last of the knights. The boy collapsed, unconscious, armor dented and smeared with blood, though life still clung to him. Amalia broke from the melee to shield the child with her own body, standing guard as Brenna charged the towering Bolg. Her blade struck true, but the monstrous warrior parried and bellowed a challenge that shook the ground. Harmony dashed to Amalia's side, kneeling beside the fallen youth and confirming his shallow breath. Relief mixed with fear. He lived, but only barely. Around them, the Misfits threw themselves against the horde. Striker felled another Hugel with a devastating kick that left even her blinking at the sheer force of it. Barden waded in to cut down the attackers who dared come near the boy. Brian and Alice worked in tandem, crushing goblins while Brian fought through exhaustion and injury. Adrian laughed darkly amid the clash, fangs flashing as he bit into a Barbarous throat and drew strength from their lifeblood. His grin unnerved friend and foe alike, a reminder of the strange hunger that lingered beneath his human guise. Brenna fought with reckless fury, her longsword carving arcs of steel, her bloodied face twisted in both pain and defiance. Yet even she staggered beneath the Bolg's crushing counterblows. Harmony saw the crimson streaming from her friend's wounds and raised her holy symbol high, crying out for Harula's blessing. Radiant healing poured into Brenna, knitting flesh and granting the dragon-blooded warrior strength enough to stand tall once more. Still, the enemy pressed hard. Adrian, snarling, tore at his foes again and again until they fell. Brian staggered under a goblin's bite, bloodied and furious, while Alice crushed the offender into the dirt with inhuman force. Striker traded quips even as she struck, keeping spirits high in the blood-soaked mire. But not all prayers were answered. Harmony's voice broke as one healing plea faltered, divine power slipping through her grasp.
"Goddess, why?"
she whispered, despair tugging at her faith. Yet she rallied, tearing off her gauntlet and allowing Amalia to draw upon her mana to fuel another spell. Even in the darkest moment, Harmony placed her faith in her companions. Blow by blow, the Misfits cut down the last of the Barbarous. Brenna gutted the Bolg with a savage strike, ending the beast's bellow once and for all. Adrian laughed at the carnage while Brian slumped to the ground, battered but alive. One final goblin tried to cling to survival, only to be obliterated beneath Alice's relentless fists. At last, the battlefield fell silent, but for the groans of the wounded and the panting breaths of the survivors. As the blood mist cleared, the Misfits gathered. Gawain and Amalia spread healing, tending to friend and boy alike. Harmony whispered comfort as she examined the youth, her hands shaking. He bore no mortal wounds, only exhaustion and the terrible toll of mana overuse. With food, water, and rest, he would recover. Yet the greater danger loomed, the shallow abyss itself. The battlefield was no safe haven, and reinforcements might descend at any moment. Arguments broke out among the Misfits. Should Adrian carry the boy out with his strange magic? Should they fortify and rest? Could they even escape without facing whatever boss entity lurked deeper within? Exhaustion weighed on them all. Brian, flat on his back, groaned about his dwindling strength and begged for rest. Barden sought higher ground or defensible cover. Brenna, sword still wet with gore, muttered about reinforcements and the fallen knights who had fought so desperately. Harmony, subdued and uncertain, urged that they take the boy to safety, but admitted in a whisper that the castle's shadow still demanded answers. When Harmony tried to lift the boy, his armored weight proved too much. Flustered and ashamed, she stepped back, asking for help. Barden and Amalia worked together, their combined strength finally shifting the youth. Brian, despite his complaints, pushed himself to aid them as well. At last, with the boy supported between them, the Misfits turned their eyes toward whatever refuge might be carved from this hostile abyss. They were battered, bloodied, and weary, but alive. And though the line of knights had been broken, their sacrifice bought the Misfits the chance to fight on. As silence settled and the smell of death lingered, Harmony's quiet words summed up the mood of the company.
A safe place, but that's all we need now.
Meta summary. This session balanced visceral combat with moments of emotional weight. The clash against the Barbarous highlighted both the brutality of the shallow abyss and the fragile line between victory and collapse. The knight's fall was not just a tactical loss. It created a poignant moment, with the boy's anguished cry and eventual collapse grounding the stakes in human terms. Each character's role shone clearly. Harmony's faith and healing anchored the group, even as her failed prayer added vulnerability and doubt. Brenna embodied raw ferocity, bloodied yet unbroken. Stryker brought both levity and shocking bursts of violence, her quips reinforcing camaraderie. Brian and Alice emphasized the cost of magic and endurance. Their successes were undercut by friendly fire and fatigue. Adrian's unsettling hunger added tension and contrast, while Barden remained steadfast, sword and shield protecting allies. The pacing swung between near-overwhelming pressure and sudden surges of triumph, culminating in the decisive slaying of the Bolg. The victory felt earned, but not absolute. The party ended exhausted, the boy alive but fragile, and the abyss itself still looming as an unanswered threat. Overall, the session deepened bonds through shared hardship, delivered intense action beats, and set up further challenges by underscoring the uncertainty of safety within the abyss. It left the party bloodied but united, with the promise of harder choices yet to come.